Thank you for joining today's telephone town hall with Congressman Michael Waltz. During the call, Congressman Waltz will be taking questions from a number of folks. If you would like to ask a question, please press 0 at any time. We're also joined by Bob Snyder from the Flagler Department of Health. And again, if you would like to ask a question during this live telephone town hall, please press 0. With that, I will turn it over to Congressman Waltz.
Well, thank you, Allison. And again, this is Michael Waltz. I am the Congressman for Florida's Flagler and portions of Lake and St. Johns counties. And thank you all so much for joining us on this town hall. Again, Mike Waltz here. If you have a question or comment, please press 0. Again, that's 0 if you have a question or comment. And what will happen when you hit 0 is you'll speak to someone who will put you in the queue to then speak with me. So over the next hour, I will take your questions about coronavirus. I'm also joined by Bob Snyder from the Flagler Department of Health, who can answer any of the more health-related or detailed questions you have about the virus. Again, this is Michael Waltz. Welcome to our town hall and to our telephone town hall. And if you have a question or comment tonight, please press 0. So tonight's telephone town hall will be talking about coronavirus and the newly passed economic, or you've heard about in the news recently. So just a bit of history. I think most people know that this novel coronavirus originated in Wuhan, China, late last year. The virus causes pneumonia-like symptoms, including a fever, a dry cough, runny nose, sometimes breathing difficulties. This strain of coronavirus that has previously never been seen in humans, which is why it's called novel. And it is deadlier than the flu. Since late last year, coronavirus has spread globally, obviously also here in Florida, where as of this morning, we have nearly 7,000 diagnosed cases. By the counties in our district is 80 in Volusia, 20 in Flagler, 83 in St. Johns, and 67 in Lake. And I'm sure as many of the impact has frankly been devastating and is being felt just across every industry, top to bottom, from this virus. Governor DeSantis, in fact, if you have not seen the news today, has announced a stay-at-home order for the entire state, and that will become effective at 12:01 a.m. Thursday. You may, within this order, which we have posted on our website at waltz.house.gov, the full order. I encourage everyone to actually read it. But you may only leave the house for essential activities. Those, again, are defined in the order, but they are, for example, going to the grocery store, going to the pharmacy, getting exercise, walking your dog, those types of activities. Otherwise, everyone is directed to stay at home, and I just cannot encourage that enough. This is personal responsibility on all of us to take this seriously, to abide by the guidelines, and the sooner we all do that, the sooner we will break the spread of the virus, and the sooner we will get to the other side of this, both economically and from a public health standpoint. So we are seeing, obviously, in the economic damage that I mentioned, a significant uptick in unemployment claims. Last week, nearly 3.3 million people across the country filed unemployment. In Florida, that was a total of 74,000 people signed up last week, which is far greater than the 40,000 number of claims set in 2009 during the Great Recession. And to put that in perspective, the total was a high jump from a significant filed just a week earlier. So we went from 6,200 claims to 74,000 in the span of a week. So again, I'm Michael Waltz. I am the Congressman for the 6th District. This is our coronavirus telephone town hall. And just a reminder that if you have a question or comment, please press 0. I would say just a few other comments about the stimulus package that Congress passed last week. The president signed into law on Friday. We have a summary of the bill. The entire bill is 800 pages. We have a 35-page summary posted on my website. And again, that's waltz.house.gov. There's a pop-up on the screen, and as soon as you enter the site, if you click on that, it'll direct you to the page where you can find that information. It's at the top part of the website in the navigation bar. The bill will provide $1,200 checks to American workers making less than $75,000 individually or $150,000 for married couples, depending on how you filed. And that's for the majority of the American population. This amount is based on your 2018 tax returns, or the 2019 tax return if you have filed those already. But as many of you may know, the filing deadline has been extended to July 15th for 2019. Families will also receive an additional $500 per child under the age of 17. Those of you listening who receive Social Security, you are eligible. The Treasury Department is trying to get all of these details in place as we speak, along with the IRS and along with the Small Business Association. Treasury Mnuchin is out in the next 3 weeks, and he will continue to update the country on the progress of pushing these checks out. On the small business side, we will, and I was a former small business owner as well. I'm incredibly sympathetic to how devastating this has been. Our small businesses will be eligible for new loans to help them pay their expenses, and with the goal of keeping employees on payroll. The Small Business Administration will issue forgivable loans up to 8 weeks at 2.5 times the average monthly payroll for your business. And that, again, those details are being worked out on exactly what kind of documentation you have to provide. The Treasury Department is endeavoring to make as many banks as possible designated as processors of these loans. So I would encourage out there to please check with your lending institution as soon as possible to go ahead and begin gathering the documentation that you need. So once again, Congressman Mike Waltz, remember if you have a question or comment tonight, please press 0. I'll say that the stimulus package also helps our healthcare workers, those who are truly on the front lines, heroes that are fighting this virus and caring for all of us. It also increases access to testing and is providing additional funding for vaccine research and antiviral research. As you all know, the CDC is recommending what we're calling social distancing, 6 feet away from each other, not participating in gathering more than 10 people, and not going out unless completely necessary, as we mentioned with the governor's new guidelines. The CDC guidelines are in place now until April 30th. One more time, if you have a question or comment, please press 0, and only about the economic stimulus package and how our intent from the congressional perspective on that legislation. The questions about the virus itself, I want to be absolutely as helpful as possible. If we cannot answer your question, we are endeavoring to record those, and my staff has been getting back to those that we couldn't get to in the course of an hour, and we've been working on that since the last telephone town hall that week. So let's take some questions and hear what you are thinking. Back over to you, Allison.
Again, if you have a question for Congressman Waltz, please press 0 and we will get you in the queue. Now let's take our first caller. We are going to Floyd Murdy from Deltona. Floyd has a question about Social Security checks and how she might receive that. Floyd, you're live.
Yes, I'm just wondering if it's going to be directly deposited. And as of normal, it comes every month.
Yeah, thank you so much for your question. what the IRS is endeavoring to do with the checks, and these are tax rebate checks, is to deposit those directly into your account if, this is the important part, if they have direct deposit information on file as of 2018, because that's the last full tax year that everyone filed. If they do not have that information, then they will put a check in the mail to you to the address that they have on, is kind of determining those two pathways. If they have your bank information on file as of 2018, then it should come via direct deposit. If not, then it should come via paper check to the last address that the IRS has.
Thank you, sir.
And I would just say one other thing, sir, and again, thank you for joining us. For those individuals that if the IRS does not have that information, please go to the IRS website. This function is apparently not up yet. My staff is telling me, but they are going to put a function up on their site so that you can enter your latest address.
Thanks, Floyd, for your question. Next, we are going to about whether the stimulus checks are tax deductible.
Hi, yes. Thank you so much. Thank you. Michael Waltz, I want you to know I so much appreciate you being able to be in our Congress for us. You've made a huge difference. I know people may tell you that, and it may go in one ear and out the other, but I'm telling you from where I sit, I appreciate it. Can you hear me, sir? Yes, I do. The question. You're welcome. Michael, I do have a question in regards to the $1,200 payment that each of the adults are going to be receiving. I remember the last time that we had any kind of a big check going out to all the citizens or all the adults in America, what it ended up being was nothing more than an advance refund from the forward year that we would be paying taxes, and so that money back. Are we going to be taxed on this $1,200?
No. Thank you so much. And my understanding is they are not. You will not be taxed on these monies, and but they will also not be tax deductible. I hope. Does that answer your question?
That absolutely does answer my question. The other question I have is on Easter, are our churches going to be allowed to have like a drive-in theater where everybody just drives in their car, doesn't get out of the car, and then be able to have a service?
So that's a great question, and I would encourage everyone to read the executive order. Again, it's on my site at waltz.house.gov. But it does have an exclusion there for worship. I would if you can possibly to do that remotely. I know a number of churches are doing it through meeting sites like Zoom or Skype. Others are doing it as you suggested, almost like a drive-in movie theater style. But if there are ways, I don't want to pontificate too much, but I think at the end of the day, as long as we're honoring our God and spending that time spiritually, I would hope that meets the intent, but also we can keep some distance so that that's not an occasion where the virus spreads. But I would encourage everyone just to be smart about it and use some common sense. But in the executive order, there is no preclusion in terms of the stay-at-home order to forms of worship.
We have Monty Lester from Daytona Beach. Monty has a question about quarantining for 2 more weeks. Monty, you're live.
Yes, sir. And one other question I had is I have a food pantry, and I'm going to be operating on Monday. I'm wondering if that's going to be a problem. I'm restructuring how I do it. I'm going to fill boxes of food and put it on the table and let people grab it as they drive by? Is that a problem?
I think that sounds, I don't see an issue with that. I think that sounds like a great idea. And thank you, personally, I want to thank you for what you're doing. I have a military background, 24 years in the Army, still serving at the National Guard. I was actually in uniform yesterday, helping with a coronavirus site. And we say all the time, down in the foxhole, the engine or economic background, they certainly don't care about political party. All they care about is that we're American, and this virus doesn't discriminate either. And it really does take us coming together. At the end of the day, we're all Americans. We're all in this together. And thank you very much for what you're doing on with that food pantry and helping people in need. And it sounds like a very reasonable idea to sit them out and let people come by so you minimize the social spread. I don't know if that was the extent of your question. Okay, sure.
Thank you for your question, Monty. Next, we are going to ask a survey question. Your feedback is very important, so before we go to our next question, we'd like you to weigh in. So here is our first survey question. Have you or someone you know been recently unemployed or fear becoming unemployed because of the coronavirus crisis? Myself. Press 2 for yes, someone I know. Press 3 for no. Again, press 1 for yes, myself is fearing becoming unemployed because of the coronavirus crisis. Press 2 if yes, someone I know fears becoming unemployed or is unemployed because of the coronavirus crisis, or press 3 for no. Give folks a couple of seconds to fill out your surveys. And next, we're going to take a question from Hetty Hall about where to go for coronavirus testing. Hetty, you're live. What's your question?
Thank you. I just wanted to know, in the New Smyrna Beach area, where can we go for testing? Because all I've heard on TV is Orlando.
Hetty,
thank you.
Hi.
No, thank you. I was going to defer to you, Bob. Go ahead.
Yeah, Hetty, good question. So my advice, since New Smyrna Beach is in Volusia County, I would encourage you to call your Volusia County Health Department. They should know where testing is occurring. Now, keep in mind that the kind of testing we're talking about is diagnostic testing, that we're testing and prioritizing those that have clinical symptoms and clinical symptoms, and you're hospitalized, you're in a nursing home, healthcare workers, first responders, just as some examples, and then those over the age of 60 who are immunocompromised, like people who have cancer, and then those who have the clinical symptoms and have been exposed to someone who tested positive for the virus. So that's the testing criteria. But yeah, I would call the Volusia County Health Department to get the testing sites. I know they're testing. Most likely the hospitals in your area are testing, and there may be some physician offices and urgent care centers, Hetty, that are testing.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for answering my question.
You're quite welcome. Hello?
Allison to come back online.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm back.
Okay.
Next we have a question from Gerald McDowell. Gerald has a question about Social Security and whether he might be eligible to receive a stimulus check based on his Social Security income.
Yeah.
So Gerald, you're live.
Yeah, I've not filed income tax for the last 5 years because all I've had was Social Security and VA benefits. Do they just automatically post it because I'm receiving Social Security?
So Social Security does not preclude you from receiving that benefit. There are no income requirements. But I do believe check the IRS site. I do believe that they are going to put up information in terms of your mailing address and or your banking so that you can receive that individual stimulus check. Well,
I'd like to follow up. I receive Social Security as a direct deposit. Would they not
over
just
$75,000? No, you're not. You're under.
Yeah. Hello? I'm confused.
Yeah, so we will have to, in terms of the implementation, we will have to check with the IRS. That would make sense that they would obviously cross-level with the Social Security Administration. We have, again, and IRS is still formulating the actual details, but we have received some guidance from the IRS. Some seniors and may be required to fill what's called a simple tax return in order to receive a stimulus check in the coming weeks. And what we will do is the IRS finalizes that guidance. We will post that on our website as that comes out at waltz.house.gov. But we will certainly, I 100% agree with you. It would make sense if the Social Security Administration has that information that the IRS pulls that over, and we will be sure to relay that back to IRS. They may already be doing that, but again, we just passed the bill on Friday, and they are crafting that legislation as we speak. Or that implementing guidance as we speak. And we'll get you a better answer, sir.
Thanks so much for your question, Gerald. Next, we are going to go to Ken Howard. He should travel. Ken, you're live.
Yes, Mike. My name is Ken Howard on Palm Coast. Does the stay-in order preclude us from going to Virginia to do a closing on a home that we own up there? We're going to drive up there and do some paperwork, some signing, and come back.
Is there, I would just encourage you, if there is any way that there is someone you can do that through a power of attorney or somehow do that remotely through e-signing. I know I've done that before when I was deployed with the military. But if there's any way that you could limit that travel, that's what I would absolutely encourage you to do. It's certainly not worth our health. And even those who feel healthy or you're not in the targeted, in the most vulnerable categories, we don't know enough, and this is the part that I don't think is really getting through to folks. We don't know enough about the virus yet to know how much it is spreading for those who feel what's called point-of-care mass testing, literally millions and tens of millions of tests out to folks. Then we won't have the ability to even people who are absolutely feeling fine to know whether you have it or not, and therefore whether you're spreading it, which will eventually get to people who are vulnerable. So that's my encouragement, and I think that's what the governor's intent is as well.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thanks for your question, Ken. Next, we are going to Maria. Maria also has a question about the stay-at-home order, and she is wondering whether you can go to the bank or to the store.
Yeah, that's my question. You say I could go out shopping or exercise. Suppose I have to go out to cash my check. What do I do? Can I go to the bank?
Well, yes. That obviously we need to receive, to get money to be able to buy food and essential needs. I would say, for example, I'm able to, I don't know if you have a smartphone, but I'm able to deposit my checks remotely now.
If there's anybody... I'm not so good with that.
Okay. Well, if you have anybody, maybe in your family or anybody that could show you, that's just one idea. But
no, I'm
that
alone.
is considered. Oh,
I'm alone.
sorry. That is considered essential. If you look at and again, we have the guidelines up on my website. So if you need to go to the bank to be able to get money, and I would check with your bank though. Some of them are on very limited hours as well. Or if your ability to maybe cash it at a grocery store or some other institution that is staying open.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. God bless you, and please stay healthy.
Thanks for your question, Maria. Next, we're going to go to Candace, who has a question about screening incoming passengers who are coming into the United States. Candace, you're live. Candace, are you there?
Yes, this is Janice.
Oh, Janice.
Yes.
Sorry, we've got your name wrong.
Yes.
Janice, so you have a question for the congressman?
Yes.
Go right ahead.
Yes, I'm concerned that the Daytona Beach International Airport is not they are not doing this because I feel this is a necessity.
Well, I'll leave that just a moment. Janice, I'll tell you, I had to fly up to Washington, D.C. to vote on the stimulus package, and the airports are literally empty, and the flights are empty. And Daytona right now is not accepting international flights. The main one that it accepted was either from the Caribbean or Canada, and those are not running to my knowledge. And we also have a number of travel bans from most European countries, certainly China and a number of Asian countries. It's something that we're taking very seriously. I do expect down the road, as we hopefully start to loosen some of these bans, that you will see significant screening in place so that we do not have reinfection coming from the outside from countries who are on a steeper or on a different. Did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, Congressman. I think you answered that extremely well. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ken.
Okay. Thank you, Janice. I appreciate
Candace.
your concern.
Thanks, Janice. Thanks, Janice, for your question. Next, we are going to go to Paula. Paula has a question about Social Security recipients and how much of the stimulus check they can expect to receive. Paula, you're live.
Yes, Congressman Waltz. My question is the fact that my husband and I are both on Social Security, but unlike that gentleman that was on earlier about not filing taxes, my husband and I do still file taxes because he has a couple of retirement checks that he gets deposited, and they are still being taxed. So that's why we still do our taxes every year. But everybody that has, like, people that are getting the $1,200 or the $2,400 or the $500 for the children, they all know about how much they're getting. But nobody has said anything about people that are on Social Security. How come we don't know what we're getting back?
The bottom line is it is income dependent. So if you and your husband are filing jointly, and you are, if your income is under $150,000 as of 2018, then you should receive the $1,200 per person.
Per person, even though we filed jointly as far as being married?
That's right. It's $1,200 per person, so that'll be $2,400 for the couple, as long as your joint income was under $150,000. And if you're on file as of 2018, it sounds like you do, then Treasury and IRS's goal is to direct deposit that into that account.
Okay, and how soon before we can get a hold of our bank to see if it has been deposited?
So the Treasury's goal, and everyone's doing their best here, is to get those out by April 6th.
By April 6th? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Thank you so very much. I almost didn't answer my phone because it showed up on my caller ID as a 1-800 unknown number. So I almost didn't answer it, but I'm glad I did.
I'm glad you did. Well, I'm glad you did too. Well, I'm glad you did too, and stay strong.
Thank you so much.
Sure. Absolutely. Happy to.
Okay, thanks.
Now we have another survey question for you. This is about the economic stimulus package, which we've been discussing on this call. So after listening to this call, do you support or oppose the economic stimulus package that was signed into law last week? Again, do you support or oppose the economic stimulus package signed into law last week? Press 1 if you support the package. Press 2 if you oppose the package. Again, press 1 if you support the package, and press 2 if you oppose the package. Next, we're going to go to Betty McMullen. Betty has a question about a food service that delivers for her and whether they will be able to continue to deliver for her during the stay-at-home order. Betty, you're live.
Yes, I no longer draw service, and it's worked very well, and I was wondering if I'll be able to continue to use that.
Hi, Betty. Well, thank you so much for calling in or for answering and joining us. And yes, the answer is absolutely yes, that you should still be able to continue to receive that food service. And for others listening, takeout service is also still allowed and fine under the stay-at-home order, as is going to the grocery store, going to the pharmacy, even activities such as exercising outside or walking your dog. Really, the goal is to keep people from congregating, particularly in groups of 10 or more, and to get that distance in place that is going to break the spread of this virus, so that we enjoy it. But those essential activities, and again, I have the actual executive order and what's defined as essential activities on my website at waltz.house.gov. If you have internet capability and you're able to check that. But thank you so much, Barry. I hope that answers your question.
Well, it's great answers. Thank you so much. Glad I voted for you.
All right. Thank you. God bless you.
Thanks so much, Betty, for your question. Next, we are going to go to Deborah Phillips, who is a business owner who has a question about forgivable loans. Deborah, you're live. Do you have a question?
Hi, I do. I'm a small business owner. I have a gift shop in Flagler Beach. I've been open 2 years now. I don't have any employees. My husband and I run the gift shop, and we do not take a salary. So would we be able to benefit from any loans or grants that?
So my understanding is that sole proprietorships or if you're a single member LLC,
yes,
we'll have to double check. I assume that you're taking distributions rather than a salary. So
correct.
We'll have to double check that distributions count the same in terms of if you were taking those monthly. But the intent, you can also get in there expenses as well in terms of your rent or other types of overhead types of expenses, your utilities and others. So
that's what I'm concerned about, paying my rent.
Right. No, that you can get in there 2.5, basically 2.5 times your monthly. Okay. And then in terms of, I know what you mean in terms of as an LLC, you're taking distributions in the form of a salary. We'll have to double check that. I don't know that off the top. There's a chance that level of detail wasn't in the legislative language, but is being added by the Treasury or the Small Business Administration, and oftentimes, those kind of more niched in between type situations is what gets added as the executive branch fleshes out the detail. But I do want to let you know that my staff is working with all small business owners to help, everybody understand. And as we get additional details, we are putting that up on the site.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, like I said, I'm just more concerned about paying my rent, paying my utilities. I really don't want to shut my doors.
Sure. So if I could I'll just read you the actual legislative language as it sits. My team who's also listening, just sent this to me. And it says the sum of payments of any compensation to or income of a sole proprietor or independent contractor that is a wage, commitment, or similar compensation, and that is in an amount not more than $100,000 in 1 year. So basically you would take the breakdown of that monthly, and it would be 2.5 times that. I would also encourage you, the SBA and Treasury are actively engaging with banks as we speak in terms of what documentation you will need. So I would encourage you to reach out to your lender sooner than later, and go ahead and start having that conversation with them of what you're going to need, because my concern is that there's going to be a crush of applications, and that's why we worked with the administration to broaden the definition to as many banks as possible. Will be able to process these applications and get those monies out to people who need them. I hope that helps.
Yeah, it does. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thanks so much for your question, Deborah. Next, we have a question from Robin Dotson, who has a question about which businesses are considered essential. Robin, you're live. Do you have a question for the Congressman?
Yes. Can you hear me okay?
I
can. Hear me okay?
Loud and clear.
Yeah, I can.
Okay, good. So we own a physical therapy business, and we're grouped as essential, but people want to tell us that we're not. So I just wanted to clarify, essential medical, we have post-surgical patients that have to have the therapy. We're considered essential, correct?
Hi,
so my
Bob.
team is, yeah. No, go ahead, Bob. I was just about to defer to you.
Oh, yes. You are considered essential, yes. Any healthcare workers who provide direct patient care, it says here physical and occupational therapists and assistants, and speech therapists, so all those ancillary therapists are definitely essential.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that, and I appreciate the phone call. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sure.
Thanks so much for your question. Now we're going to go to John from Palm Coast, who has a question on the amount of unemployment checks. John, you're live.
Oh, good. Thank you. Yeah, I'm just curious, Congressman, whether or not there is a certain amount that's going to be put aside or sent to people who come into the unemployment factor.
So thanks so much. Thanks so much for your question. I mean, we've talked so much about, hopefully a lot of this stimulus will enable our small businesses to keep people on payroll, but unfortunately, for many that hasn't worked. But basically, the unemployment compensation is determined by state. However, in this stimulus, there was a provision to provide an additional $600 per week, and there were also that's on top of the state benefit. And the other piece is the unemployment benefits have been extended. I want to say by 13 weeks. 12, 13 weeks, so 4 months. So you have an additional federal supplement on top of what the state provides, and then we also legislated and appropriated monies for a supplement to the normal length of time that you can receive those benefits.
Now,
I hope that helps.
Not quite, Congressman. I'm just curious now. In other words, there is a $600 payment on top of your normal unemployment amount?
That's right. It was a specific fund, a coronavirus unemployment fund that was built into the law that Congress passed. and obviously the executive branch is still working on actually implementing, but that will come out to $600 per person per week on top of the state benefit.
Okay. Thank you so much for your answer. I appreciate it. And thanks so much for calling.
Thank you. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thanks so much for your question, John. Now we are going to go to our final survey question. We just want to ask you one more question. So how do you feel pandemic? Press 1 if you feel President Trump is handling the coronavirus pandemic very well. Press 2 if you feel President Trump is handling the coronavirus pandemic somewhat well. Press 3 if you feel President Trump is handling the coronavirus pandemic somewhat poorly. Or press 4 if you feel President Trump is handling the coronavirus pandemic very poorly. Again, press 1 if you feel President Trump is handling the coronavirus pandemic very well. Press 2 if you feel President Trump is handling the coronavirus pandemic somewhat well. Press 3 if you feel President Trump is handling the coronavirus pandemic somewhat poorly. Or press 4 if you feel President Trump is handling the coronavirus pandemic very poorly. I'll give you a second to input your answers. And next, we have a question from about Small Business Association loans. Virgil, you're live. Do you have a question?
Yes, Congressman, I do. The SBA is handling the payroll protection Act, and they're going to make loans. Right. Do you have any idea when those forms will be available, or when the actual application process will be available to us to get those in?
Yeah, so my understanding is the SBA has the form available now, and we will post a link to that form on my website, but it's also on the SBA.gov. Remember, government websites are .gov, not .com. So mine is WALTZ, waltz.house.gov. SBA is SBA.gov. So that form has stated that he hopes, in working with banks, to have them up and running in terms of being able to process those forms by this Friday. And their goal is a 24-hour turnaround from application, from the acceptance of that application to then being able to move monies. Now, again, everybody is working hard. We're all doing the best we can to get through this, but those are his stated goals. And that form is available. We have it on my site, and we'll have it on the SBA site. I hope that, and I would encourage everyone start filling that out absolutely as soon as possible, because I do worry about if this does continue, about a real worry about a backlog, just being able to process everything and everybody that's going to need help. And I'll just say, in addition to your question, we realize and we are working at the unemployment site is really getting overloaded and getting crushed. They are doing everything they can to handle that volume as well. I know we had a previous question on the unemployment site, but I hope that answers your question on SBA.
Thanks so much, Virgil. We appreciate it. Next, we are going to go to Janice McPherson. Janice has a question about the eligibility of nonprofits for some of these loans. Janice, do you have a question for the Congressman?
Yes, I do. And for some reason, my phone has decided a fax has got to come through. My apology. I don't know how to turn it off. I hit stop and it keeps telling me. We are pastors. And, of course, at a smaller church, donations are null and void, as everyone is at home. How does this work out for nonprofits, if at all?
You are filed as a 501c3. And if you're structured that way, then you are fully eligible. So the form that we were just talking about, I don't know if you heard our previous question. It's on the SBA site. I would go to your bank and go to your lender if you have a lender for your church. and start having that conversation and getting those applications in with whatever paperwork they need. But however you have it structured, you should be able to receive 2.5 times your monthly payroll and overhead. So be sure to include your overhead expenses in there. If you keep everyone employed in the nonprofit through June 30th of this year, then that loan will be forgiven. Again, with the intent is to keep as many people as we payrolls, so that hopefully when we get through the curve, so to speak, when we get over the hump and get through this on the public health side, we'll be well positioned for recovery rather than unfortunately furloughing or laying people off and then trying to rehire them. That was the intent. Does that answer your question?
Yes, and I have a follow-up question regarding student loans. Many of our students do have student loans. I've never gotten quite a square answer on that. The Navient is the most common for most student loans. How is that working? Is there a reprieve, or are they expected, or will that damage their credit? What happens?
So I know the president early on, one of his first acts was to sign an executive order deferring the interest on student loans. So that should help on federal student loans. Student loan through their bank, then I would encourage them. The banks have been provided liquidity through the Federal Reserve and through this legislation so that they can provide 90 days of forbearance on all types on almost all types of debt. So if it's a private loan, I would encourage you to work with the bank, and there have been provisions to help the banks provide that type of forbearance. If it's a federal loan, the interest is deferred on student loans.
Thank you so much. Very complete.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. God bless you. Thank you for what you do in your ministry, and thanks so much for calling.
Thanks so much, Janice. Next, we are going to go to Charlene. Charlene from Lake Helen. She has a question about taking a friend to a doctor's appointment and whether that might be allowed. Charlene, you're live.
I'm home from picking up a few things I needed at the house, and this friend of mine, Marianne, said that we're on lockdown, that I have to cancel her appointment for Friday. So I immediately got on the phone and called this place. She has to go for therapy on her leg, and they said no, that she has to go to this appointment. And then shortly after that, I received this call. So I'm kind of confused. Am I supposed to take it or am I not?
So that is considered essential. If this is a required doctor's appointment for care and not for any type of elective, then that is considered essential, and you absolutely are fine to take her. But we have Bob from the Flagler Health Department, and I will refer that over to him as well.
Okay, absolutely. Absolutely, and thank you so much for being such a caring friend. Yes, you can take someone and assisted for that wonderful service that you're providing.
Well, thank you very much for calling me. Have a good day.
Okay, you too. Take care.
Thanks so much, Charlene. Next, we have a question from Patrick, who wants to understand what stay-at-home means. Patrick, you're live. Do you have a question for the Congressman?
Thank you, Congressman. You sort of already answered my question. I went to your website, and there's a 34-page executive order from Governor DeSantis. But since I have you, I want to thank you, and I want to express my feelings for my fellow Floridians to stay strong. We'll get through it. God bless you.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Patrick, and God bless you as well. And you know, when I was, just to share with you, when I came up to D.C. to vote, I'm still serving in the National Guard, stay in shape, and I like to run through the monuments. So I ran down through the World War II monument and around over to Vietnam, over the Korean War, over to World War I. I don't think using a wartime analogy in terms of the sacrifices that we need to make for each other right now is overstating the case. America has been through very tough times. I'm a 110% optimist on this country and on the spirit of Americans, on our ability to put any differences that may seem big at the time and now seem small, to set those aside, to link arms and to help one another and to power through this. And essentially what this stay-at-home order is asking everybody to do, previous generations, we were charging the beaches of Omaha or Iwo Jima and turning wrenches in at home. Fortunately, unlike many of the hurricanes that all Floridians have been through, we have electricity and running water, and for a lot of people, we have internet and television. The purpose of this stimulus package is helping people who are suffering financially because of the collateral damage of all of this, to help them get through that. But I think we will get through this. My prayers are out to people who are suffering from a health standpoint or are vulnerable from a health standpoint. But my job is to provide federal government resources wherever we can, wherever it makes sense. And that's absolutely my mission, and I always accomplish my mission. So that's what we're aiming to do. Thank you so much for calling in.
Thanks, Patrick. Next, we are going to go to Denise. Denise has a question about disability and supplemental income. And supplemental income would be eligible for a stimulus check. Denise, you're live.
Hi. Yes, I was just wondering about just that question. That's all I needed.
So, hi, Steve. Thanks so much. Yes, you should receive, you should be eligible. I understand you're on disability, but you should be eligible. So, again, if you do not have information on file as of 2018 with the IRS, if you haven't had to file, they are going to create a capability on their website. We will provide a link to it on my website as soon as it's available to be able to provide either your mailing address or your banking address. I can't imagine that your disability reaches the $75,000 income cap, and it does not. It's treated like Social Security. It does not preclude you.
Okay, thank you so much.
I hope that helps. Thanks so much.
It does. Thank you.
Great.
Thanks so much for your question, Denise. Next, we are going to go to Ruth Keys, who has a question about the governor's lockdown affecting the Postal Service. Ruth, you're live. Do you have a question?
Yes, thank you for talking with me, Congressman Waltz. I did have a question. I was wondering, will the government lockdown for stay-at-home order affect the Postal Service in any way?
So, no, the mail delivery should be continued. I'll tell you, that they have had infections, within the Postal Service. So they, along with all of our services, Amazon right now, are all working through their own distancing and trying to keep infections down as well, and then also doing their best from a cleanliness and sanitation standpoint so that they're not part of spreading. So I would encourage, there is guidelines out that cardboard or paper or other things can actually transmit. So to the extent you can wipe those down if you can. Bob, I don't know if you want to add anything else from Flagler's standpoint, from the health standpoint. But bottom line is the Postal Service should not be interrupted.
And with respect to handling packages and envelopes and that kind of thing, just be wary about consistently washing your hands. And secondly, try not to touch your face, your mouth, nose, eyes area. And if you follow...
Oh, well, thank you so much for that. And I had one other quick question. My dad owns an independent auto repair shop in Daytona Beach, and I was wondering, is he considered essential? Because technically he doesn't. He only has one other employee, and then my brother who also works with him. And then he doesn't have very much contact with people. They mostly just drop off the cars. So would that affect him in any way, like a small business that doesn't really have much contact with people?
I'm sorry, what was the nature of the business again?
He's an auto repair shop, Mercedes-Benz auto repair shop, and he's independently owned. So it's just him and his one employee, and then my brother who works with him.
I don't know how much interaction they're having with their customers. With the governor's office, they don't quite have every single business covered. I would encourage you to look. It's a lengthy definition. The governor's office is using some of the definitions provided by the Department of Homeland Security for what types of businesses are considered essential or not. But I would encourage your family to please, to the extent possible, and I know it's difficult because they need to receive revenue like so many other businesses, to the extent they can minimize any contact, because, with people coming and going, please do so.
Right. If I may, I think I have a definitive answer to your question, and you're okay. Automotive repair, maintenance, transportation equipment, anything related to individuals who are repairing and maintaining trucks, fine.
Oh, thank you so much for answering my question. And Congressman Waltz, I just wanted to say earlier I heard you said you were in the service. So first, thank you for your service to our country, and thank you for your service to the country as of right now and what you're doing. And so thank you for answering my question. I really appreciate it from both of you.
All right. Well, thanks so much. I appreciate that.
Thanks so much for your question, Ruth. Unfortunately, we are out of time for today. Congressman Waltz, would you like to make any closing comments?
No, thanks, Allison, and thanks so much to everyone that picked up. I know we put out a lot of calls to try to reach as many people as we can, and then also to those that called in. I know we were not able, unfortunately, to get to everyone's question, and we will endeavor to log these answers as much as humanly possible. We will continue to hold these telephonic town halls as long as we need to, and I know they're with between the stay-at-home order, between a very robust economic stimulus package and exactly how that is going to be executed to get money into people's hands that need it, and really just kind of across the board as the virus develops and we get different testing. Hopefully we get through the curve on the public health side. I know a lot of people have a lot of questions, and that's why we'll keep doing this. Happy to do it. And if I don't have the answer, that's why we have smart people like Bob on to hopefully to have the answer instead. And I have I'm blessed with a wonderful team that if we don't have it off the top of our head, we'll track it down and get it for you and get it back to us. Again, please, I really think the word or the phrase of the day is personal responsibility. We all have to take personal responsibility on this to get through this as a country, to get through this as Americans. And I'm convinced that if we do that, we will be on the right track and we will get through it sooner than later. I can tell you just as a final thought, we are already getting at lessons learned, one of which is our over-reliance on China for our medical equipment and for the raw ingredients for our pharmaceuticals, and have already introduced legislation with Senator Rubio to get at the heart of that and to bring a lot of that manufacturing, those raw materials, back home. So that is amongst many lessons that I think we need to learn as a government and as a society to not only be prepared. It will be another wave if this follows the track of SARS and MERS and H1N1, but for anything like this in the future. But for now, please abide by the guidelines. We will have more of these to answer people's questions. God bless everyone, and thank you so much.
Thanks, Congressman Waltz. That's going to wrap up our call for today. If you have a question or a comment for Congressman Waltz that did not get answered yet, please press 1 at the conclusion of this call to leave a voicemail. You may also leave your name and email address if you'd like to sign up for our e-newsletter. So if you'd like to leave a message or leave your email address to sign up for our e-newsletter, press 1 now. Thanks so much and have a great rest of your day.